Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The Afghan government says it has released a number of remaining Taliban prisoners. Presidential spokesperson Siddiqui said the exchange is a two-way process that will be fulfilled as per the decisions of the lower jirga. However, the Taliban have not yet confirmed the release of the new prisoners. China says Indian statements have proven it was New Delhi that took provocative actions first to cause the recent border escalation. In a news briefing, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said Indian troops illegally trespassed the line of actual control. She urged India to do its part in safeguarding regional peace and stability. Russia has condemned the US and EU's alleged meddling in Belarus's internal affairs, calling their statements destructive. This comes as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Belarusian counterpart Vladimir Mikheyev met in Moscow to discuss the ongoing crisis in Minsk. Lavrov said Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin will visit Belarus tomorrow for talks. In India, over 78,000 people have tested positive overnight, taking caseload to over 3.7 million with more than 66,000 deaths. Brazil has registered more than 1,200 deaths and over 42,000 cases in a day, with infection tally approaching 4 million. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 18 people have lost their lives to the virus overnight, raising the death toll to 6,318. Globally, the virus has claimed over 855,000 lives while infecting over 25.6 million. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Kabul says the government has released a number of remaining Taliban prisoners. President spokesperson Siddiqui said the exchange is a two-way process that will be fulfilled as per the decisions of the lower jirga. Earlier, advisor of the State Ministry for Peace Affairs Aziz Fazli said the release of the remaining 320 Taliban prisoners has begun. But the Taliban have not confirmed the release of any new prisoners by the government yet. Meanwhile, the Kabul's team for intra-Afghan negotiations met with President Ashraf Ghani to discuss the upcoming dialogue with the Taliban. Siddiqui said Ghani, chairman of the High Council for Reconciliation, Abdullah, and the council discussed the peace process. Niger, the UN Security Council's president for September, has dismissed the US bid to trigger the return of UN sanctions on Iran. Niger ruled out any move to put forward the SNAPBACK draft resolution, citing the lack of consensus in the 15-member body. The UNSC president said the US or any other member state of the Security Council can submit such a proposal if they want. Last month, Indonesia UNSC president for August said it could not act upon the US measure due to the opposition of the 13 council members. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted Washington will veto any resolution against the snapback measure.
Iran hopes all parties concerned could strongly support fulfillment of the deal and object to the series of illegal bullying actions of the US together.
Russia has condemned the US and EU meddling in Belarus's internal affairs, calling their statements destructive. This comes as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Belarusian counterpart Vladimir Mikheyev met in Moscow to discuss the ongoing crisis in Minsk. Lavrov said Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin will visit Belarus tomorrow for talks. Lavrov said Belarus is Russia's ally and its president is facing the biggest political crisis of his 26 years in power. Talking to reporters, Mikhail said Russia's stance on the political crisis in Belarus is helping prevent outside meddling in the country. In India, 1,045 people have died, while over 78,000 people have tested positive in the last 24 hours. Brazil has also registered more than 1,200 deaths and over 42,000 cases in a day. Now, globally, the virus has claimed over 855,000 lives, while infecting over 25.6 million. More in this report.
India continues to be the most festering COVID-19 hotspot of the world, with a daily tally of over 66,000, while caseload exceeding 3.7 million. In the Americas, the US has announced it will not join the World Health Organization-led global push for a coronavirus vaccine. Meanwhile, in Mexico, the cases tally tops 600,000 as the country eases restrictions.
The
epidemic is not over. In the area you live in, you'll still be able to hear stories and experiences about new cases, but that does not mean the epidemic in general does not exist, and we'll need to start reopening public life as the risk starts decreasing.
In Asia, mainland China has reported 8 new imported cases, down from 10 a day earlier. South Korea has reported 267 new infections as cases remain under 300 for the 4th day straight. Meanwhile, Australia has been pushed into recession, bringing 3 decades of economic growth to a halt. The government is considering to ease restrictions in the Victoria state after a hint of a downward trend in new cases.
First things first, there are 19,224 confirmed aggregate cases of coronavirus across the state since, of course, the beginning of the pandemic. That's 90 new cases since our update yesterday. Sadly, there have been now 576 Victorians who have lost their life because of this global pandemic. That's an increase of 6 since yesterday's report.
For Europe, the WHO says the region can live without a vaccine by managing outbreaks with localized lockdowns. Millions of students around Europe return to school with mandatory masks and social distancing.
In Pakistan, 18 people have lost their lives to the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has reached 6,318 so far. The ministry said 441 more tested positive for the disease overnight. It said the number of active cases in the country is at 8,813. More than 280,000 patients out of some 296,000 have recovered, which accounts for a 95% recovery rate in the country. Sindh remains the most affected province with nearly 129,000 infections, while Punjab has reported close to 97,000 cases so far. Pakistan has condemned a decision by the French magazine Charlie Hebdo to republish blasphemous caricatures of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In a tweet, the Foreign Office says such a move to offend billions of Muslims cannot be justified under the pretext of freedom of expression. It added, these actions undermine global aspirations for peaceful coexistence and interfaith harmony. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and senior White House advisor Jared Kushner have stressed the need to resume Palestine-Israel talks. Saudi state media said both the sides also discussed the regional peace at a meeting in Riyadh. Kushner is on a pan-regional visit after the diplomatic normalization agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, Washington, Abu Dhabi and Tel Aviv have urged the Palestinians to re-engage in peace talks. Earlier, Abu Dhabi reiterated its commitment to a sovereign Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Turkey says the US decision to lift a 33-year-old arms embargo from the Greek Cypriots has poisoned hopes for peace in the eastern Mediterranean. In a statement, Turkey's foreign ministry said this move is incompatible with the spirit of the alliance. It said the decision should be reviewed, otherwise Ankara will take the necessary retaliatory steps. The statement said the move disregards the equality and the balance on the island. Turkey has also rejected Austrian claims alleging Ankara of espionage as baseless. The ministry said Austria's comments show Vienna was unable to escape populist rhetoric and anti-Turkey obsession. Turkey says it has seized huge ammunition belonging to the Kurdistan Workers' Party in an operation in southeastern Hakkari province. In a statement, officials of the Hakkari Governorate said security forces have seized 2,600 rounds of anti-aircraft munition. The official said forces carried out Operation Yildirim Tuchelo in Samdinli district of the province. Turkey has launched a series of security operations to neutralize terrorists believed to be hiding out in the country's east and southeast. Turkey holds the PKK responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in its 30-year conflict. Turkey says for a sustainable and permanent ceasefire in Libya, the northern city of Sirte and central region of Jufra will have to be demilitarized. Turkish Deputy Foreign Minister Sedat Onal gave this statement following his visit to Russia. Onal said Turkey has declared its support for the demilitarization during meetings with the Russian officials. He said Turkey has also stressed the importance of starting the UN-backed intra-Libyan political dialogue and implementing the Berlin Conference resolutions. Onal also said Russia and Turkey have decided to maintain contact towards political resolution in Libya. The European Union has welcomed the Libyan ceasefire, saying Brussels continues to support a political resolution to the conflict. This comes as the EU's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, held talks with Libya's internationally recognized Prime Minister, Faisal Sarraj, in Tripoli. Borrell said the two sides discussed ways forward to advance the political process, to return to the UN-backed military committee talks, and to lift oil blockade. The EU's diplomat said Brussels strongly supports mediation efforts and de-escalation measures, including an arms embargo. Meanwhile, Italian Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio also met with both Libyan parties. The Foreign Minister called Libya a crucial crossroads for building a new model of development in the Mediterranean. China has firmly rejected a U.S. Defense Department report that says Beijing is set to at least double its warheads over the next decade. This comes as a Pentagon report claimed Beijing is close to achieving the triad, the ability to launch nuclear strikes by land, air, and sea. In a news briefing, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said the report is full of bias and ignores the facts. The spokesperson said document makes groundless comments to deliberately distort China's strategic intentions.
This report by the U.S. Department of Defense, just like other similar reports in the past, ignores the fact and is full of bias. It makes groundless comments on China's national defense and deliberately distorts China's strategic intentions.
China says Indian statements have proven it was New Delhi that took provocative actions first to cause the recent border escalation. In a news briefing, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said Indian troops illegally trespassed the line of actual control. She urged India to do its part in safeguarding regional peace and stability. Chunying said India unilaterally changed the status quo by force, undermining peace and stability in the border area. She said the responsibility rests entirely with India, as Beijing has exercised great restraint to prevent the situation from escalating. The two countries have been in a standoff over the Ladakh border dispute that erupted in late April. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in fighting that broke out between the two sides in Ladakh's Galwan Valley. In Japan, Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga has formally announced his candidacy as leader of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. The announced candidacy puts him in line to succeed Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Yoshihide Suga has worked as Prime Minister Abe's right-hand man for 8 years and has now emerged as a front-runner in the upcoming September 14th elections. Suga will be competing against former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba and ex-Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida for the post. The process to elect the LDP's president will begin on September the 8th with an official vote on the 14th of September. The new leader will have to gain majority support in the parliament to be elected as the prime minister by September the 16th. Earlier, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stepped down because of health reasons. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In the U.S. state of California, fresh protests have broken out in Los Angeles after police shot dead another African-American, Dijon Kizé. Earlier last week, a Pasadena police in the county fatally shot a black man, Anthony McLean, triggering BLM demonstrations.
Department said Kinsey ran away when deputy officers tried to stop him from violating unspecified vehicle codes. The sheriff said when reached by the officers, Kinsey punched a cop and dropped a pistol on the ground. However, eyewitnesses claim Kinsey did not have a gun and was not a threat. The deputy shot the man over 20 times, which Kinsey's aunt said was due to her nephew's appearance as a black man. This comes as President Donald Trump reaches Kenosha in Wisconsin and backs police officers, saying they sometimes have to choke people.
We have to condemn the dangerous anti-police rhetoric. It's getting more and more. It's very unfair. You have some bad apples, we all know that, and those will be taken care of through the system, and nobody's going to be easy on them either. And you have people that choke.
After Portland, Kenosha has also become protests hotspot since police shot African-American Jacob Blake multiple times in the back, leaving him paralyzed.
Turkey says two Venezuelan opposition leaders are in talks with the government of President Nicolas Maduro to participate in the upcoming legislative elections. After the talks with Maduro and opposition leaders, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu at a news conference said both the sides have agreed on the presence of international observers in the vote scheduled for December. Çavuşoğlu said Ankara is happy that two sides are close to a deal and that foreign-funded individuals will not take part in the elections. President Nicolas Maduro has also pardoned over 100 opposition politicians ahead of the elections and asked the people to trust his decision.
Understand me. I ask for your understanding. I know what I am doing. I ask for your support. I ask for the understanding of all of Venezuela. I ask for your understanding and ask for your support on this path to peace. I know what I am doing.
16 people, including women and children, have died in rain-related incidents in Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Authorities say at least 31 others were injured during the last 24 hours in the districts of Swat, Mansehra and Shangla. Current monsoon season has claimed 176 lives across the country so far. The National Disaster Management Authority says 101 others have been injured, while over 200 houses have been damaged. Facebook and Twitter have taken down accounts allegedly linked to Russian state actors for committing coordinated inauthentic behavior. The company says 13 accounts and 2 pages tied to Russia's Internet Research Agency have been removed from the social network. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation says it provided the information to Facebook against threats to security and democracy. Facebook said a Russian influence operation posed an independent news outlet to target left-wing voters in the US and the UK. It said the outlet recruited freelance journalists to write about the US and Britain's domestic politics. Meanwhile, Twitter says it has also suspended 5 related accounts attributed to Russian actors for platform manipulation. The life-size Nourishing Our Future sculpture, entirely made of butter, is put on display in New York City. The sculpture was presented via Facebook Live due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The buttery artwork has 2 timely panels. One side shows parents serving their kids food with butter, while the other shows a laptop in place for distance learning in the era of the global pandemic. The sculpture is part of the annual New York State Fair, which is organized by the American Dairy Association Northeast. Much of the rest of the fair has been sidelined as a result of the pandemic. The International Air Transport Association says passenger demand has slightly improved in July compared to the last month. In a press release, the association said the drop in the demand was 96.8% in June, while reducing to 91.9% in July. It said reopening aviation market in the Schengen area contributed to the international demand in Europe. It said domestic traffic fell 57.5% in July, less than 68% decline in June. IATA said lifting and reimposing quarantine measures do not give customers confidence to make travel plans, no airlines to make schedules. Latest data from the Australian government shows the country has fallen into its deepest economic slump on record in second quarter. The statistics show the country's $1.47 trillion economy shrunk by 7% in the second quarter, continuing the first quarter decline. Canberra has reported its first downturn since 1991 and joins the United States, Japan, the UK and Germany. Addressing media, Treasurer George Frydenberg said this crisis is like no other and attributed the downturn to the COVID-19 pandemic. He said the government will keep its policy of maintaining fiscal stimulus and support its people as the country comes out of the crisis. Frydenberg said the Victoria's lockdowns will weigh heavily on September quarter GDP. The June quarter decline is the largest in quarterly gross domestic product since records began in 1959. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.